It was a cold evening, and the road was almost empty. The streetlights were glowing dim, and only a few cars passed by once in a while. The air felt heavy, and silence made everything look strange. On one side of the road, a small silver car was standing still. The bonnet was half open, and smoke was rising from the engine. Beside the car stood a young woman named Sarah. She looked worried, her hands shaking as she tried again and again to make a call on her phone. But her phone battery was almost dead, showing only one small line. Every time she looked at the dark road around her, fear grew stronger inside her. She had never felt this alone before. Sarah whispered to herself, "Why here, why now?" Her voice was weak, and her eyes filled with tears. She was not very far from the city, but the place was lonely. She thought about waiting, but no car was stopping. People passed by, but nobody cared to look. She hugged her arms around herself to fight the cold, but it did not help. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a bike. It came fast and stopped right next to her car. The sudden noise of brakes made her jump in fear. She turned quickly and saw a tall man getting off the bike. He was wearing a black leather jacket, and his face looked serious. His name was Ion, though Sarah did not know it yet. His eyes were sharp, and his voice was deep when he said, "Is your car broken?" Sarah stepped back in fear, holding her bag close. She had heard so many scary stories about strangers on lonely roads. She wanted to run, but where would she go? The road was dark, her phone almost dead, and her car was useless. She did not answer at first. The man looked at her silently for a moment and then walked toward the car. "I can check it," he said calmly. His tone was not soft, but it was not harsh either. Sarah still felt unsure. Her heart beat faster, but at the same time, she knew she had no other option. Slowly, she nodded and pointed at the open bonnet. Ion bent down and started checking the engine. His hands moved with experience, as if he had done this many times before. Sarah stood a few steps away, watching him carefully. She wanted to keep a distance, but she could not take her eyes off him. His silence made him even more mysterious. She wondered who he was and why he had stopped to help when nobody else had. Minutes passed, and he tried again and again to fix the car. The road around them was empty, the wind cold, and the night heavy. Finally, the engine made a rough sound and then started running. Sarah's eyes lit up with relief. For the first time that night, a small smile appeared on her face. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. But Ion did not smile back. He only wiped his hands with a small cloth he carried and looked at her seriously. "You should not stand here alone. It's dangerous," he said in a firm voice. His words sounded less like advice and more like a warning. Sarah was about to ask him something more, maybe even his name, but before she could speak, he started his bike. His movements were quick, almost as if he did not want to stay for long. He put on his helmet, started the engine, and prepared to leave. "Wait!" Sarah called out. Her voice was desperate without her knowing. Ion stopped for just a moment. He turned his head slightly but did not remove the helmet. Through the glass, his eyes met hers. Sarah felt something strange, something she could not explain. Her heart beat faster again, but this time it was not fear. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice almost pleading. There was a short pause. Then he replied, "Just take care of yourself." With those words, he pressed the accelerator and rode away into the night. Sarah stood frozen, her heart heavy with mixed feelings. She wanted to thank him properly, she wanted to know who he really was, but he was gone already. The road looked even emptier without him. Slowly, she sat inside her car and drove away, but her mind was not calm. On her way home, she kept thinking about him. His silence, his warning, his mysterious eyes, everything replayed in her mind again and again. It was strange how a stranger could leave such a strong mark in such a short time. She did not know why, but she felt like this was not the last time she would see him. That night, when Sarah lay in bed, she could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face and heard his voice telling her to take care. She wondered who he was, why he stopped, and why he left without even giving his name. Somewhere deep inside her heart, she felt that her story with him had only just started. The next morning, Sarah woke up with heavy eyes. She had hardly slept the night before. Even though she told herself to forget about the stranger, her mind kept going back to him. She remembered his voice, his eyes, and the way he fixed her car without asking for anything in return. Most of all, she remembered the way he left, without even sharing his name. She sat at her window, looking outside, lost in thought. The busy city looked normal again, but her heart did not feel normal. She wondered if she would ever see him again, or if he was just another passerby who came and went like the wind. She shook her head and tried to focus on her work, but her heart refused to listen. Later that day, she went out to buy some groceries. The street was crowded, full of people rushing here and there. As she walked past a bookstore, something unusual caught her eye. A bike, the same black one she had seen the night before, was parked outside. Her heart skipped a beat. She stopped, staring at it, her hands trembling slightly. Could it be him? She stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. Just then, a familiar tall figure walked out of the store, carrying a small bag. It was him. Ion. His jacket was the same, his walk calm and steady. Sarah froze in place, unable to move. She wanted to call out, but her voice would not come. Ion noticed her. His steps slowed for a second, and his eyes met hers again. Sarah felt the same strange pull in her chest. He gave her a small nod, nothing more, and started walking toward his bike. This time, Sarah could not let him go. She quickly gathered her courage and said, "Wait." Her voice was louder than she expected, and a few people around turned to look. Ion stopped, just like he had the night before. Sarah walked closer, her heart racing. "I didn't get to thank you properly," she said, her voice softer now. "You helped me last night. I was scared, and you were the only one who stopped." Ion looked at her for a moment, his face unreadable. Finally, he said, "You're safe now. That's all that matters." Sarah frowned a little. "That's not enough. You saved me from a very bad situation. Can't I at least know your name?" There was silence. For a second, Sarah thought he would ignore her again. But then, with a quiet voice, he said, "Ion." Her heart felt lighter hearing his name. She repeated it softly, "Ion." It felt strange on her lips, yet comforting. She smiled and extended her hand. "I'm Sarah." Ion looked at her hand but did not shake it. Instead, he gave a small nod. "Take care, Sarah." And once again, he turned to leave. But this time, Sarah stepped forward quickly. "You always leave so fast. Why? Are you always in a hurry, or do you just not like talking to people?" Ion stopped. There was a faint shadow of a smile on his lips, though it disappeared quickly. "Maybe both," he replied. Sarah laughed softly, surprising herself. "Well, I'm not going to let you run away so easily this time. At least let me buy you a coffee. It's the least I can do." Ion looked at her carefully. His eyes showed hesitation, as if he was fighting with himself. Finally, after a long pause, he said, "One coffee. Nothing more." They walked to a small cafe nearby. It was quiet, with soft music playing in the background. Sarah ordered coffee for both of them, and they sat by the window. For the first time, she had a chance to look at him properly. His face was calm, but his eyes carried something heavy, like a story he was hiding. Sarah tried to break the silence. "So, do you always go around fixing broken cars at night?" Ion raised an eyebrow. "No. I was just passing by." "But you stopped," Sarah insisted. "Most people didn't. Why did you?" He took a sip of coffee and looked outside the window. "Because it was not safe. That's all." Sarah leaned forward. "You don't talk much, do you?" Ion's lips curved slightly. "Talking is easy. Doing is harder." His answer made her think deeply. She felt there was something about him, something different. The more she looked at him, the more curious she became. She wanted to know what he was hiding, what pain was behind those serious eyes. The coffee ended quickly, but Sarah did not want the moment to end. She had never felt this strange connection with anyone before. Ion stood up first. "I should go," he said. Sarah felt disappointed, but she nodded. "Will I see you again?" she asked quietly. Ion looked at her for a long moment. Then he replied in a low voice, "Some people are not meant to stay. But maybe, you will." And with that, he walked away again. Sarah sat there, her heart racing. His words were confusing, yet they gave her hope. Something told her this was only the beginning, and their paths would cross again. Days passed, but Sarah could not get Ion out of her mind. The memory of that night on the lonely road and the short meeting at the cafe kept replaying in her thoughts. She had never met anyone like him before. His silence, his words, even the way he looked at her, it all made her feel something she could not explain. One evening, after work, Sarah decided to take a different route home. She wanted some fresh air and to clear her mind. As she walked through a narrow street, she suddenly noticed a familiar bike parked near a small garage. Her heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, she stopped and stared. Through the half-opened door of the garage, she saw him. Ion. He was fixing a bike, his hands covered with grease, his jacket hanging on a chair nearby. He looked focused, almost lost in his work. For a moment, Sarah just stood there, watching quietly. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a mix of curiosity and comfort. She finally gathered the courage and walked inside. "So this is where you disappear," she said softly. Ion looked up in surprise. For a second, his eyes showed shock, then quickly turned serious again. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Sarah smiled nervously. "I was just walking, and I saw your bike. I thought maybe I'd say hello." He wiped his hands with a cloth and shook his head slightly. "You shouldn't be here. This place is not for you." Sarah frowned. "What do you mean? It's just a garage." Ion looked at her quietly, then said in a low voice, "Not everything is what it looks like." His words confused her. But instead of leaving, she walked closer. "You always push people away, don't you?" she said gently. Ion did not reply. He turned back to his work, trying to avoid her eyes. But Sarah did not give up. She stood there, watching him. After a while, she asked, "Why are you always so serious? Do you ever smile?" Ion finally looked at her, his eyes dark. "Smiles are for people who don't carry weight on their shoulders." Sarah felt her heart tighten. She could feel there was pain behind his words. She wanted to ask more, but she stopped herself. Instead, she picked up a small tool lying on the table. "Teach me," she said suddenly. Ion looked surprised. "Teach you what?" Sarah smiled. "Teach me how to fix something. Maybe a bike, maybe a car. I don't care. Just teach me." He raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because I want to understand you," she answered softly. For the first time, Ion did not know what to say. Her words touched something deep inside him. After a long silence, he finally handed her a small wrench. "Hold it like this," he said quietly. Sarah smiled and followed his instructions. She was clumsy at first, but she laughed at her own mistakes. Ion watched her, and for a brief second, his lips curved into the faintest smile. Sarah noticed it, and her heart skipped. She felt like she had won something important. They spent the next hour together in the garage. Sarah asked small questions, and Ion gave short answers. But slowly, the silence between them started to feel less heavy. She felt like she was peeling away a small layer of his walls. When it grew late, Ion finally said, "You should go home. It's not safe to be here at night." Sarah nodded, but before leaving, she looked at him seriously. "You keep telling me what's not safe, but you never tell me why. What are you hiding, Ion?" For a moment, his eyes darkened. He looked away and said nothing. Sarah felt a sting in her heart, but she did not push further. She simply said, "One day, you'll tell me. And I'll wait." She walked out of the garage, leaving him standing there in silence. As she disappeared into the street, Ion closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He had not let anyone close to him in a long time. And now, suddenly, this girl was breaking into his quiet, guarded world. That night, Sarah lay in bed thinking about him again. She remembered the grease on his hands, the faint smile he tried to hide, and the weight in his eyes. She felt something stronger than curiosity now. It was not just about knowing him, it was about being there for him. On the other side of the city, Ion sat alone in the garage, staring at the empty door where Sarah had stood. A part of him wanted to push her away forever, to keep her safe from his world. But another part of him, a part he had buried long ago, wanted her to stay. And deep inside, he knew this story between them was only going to get harder. The days kept moving, and Sarah found herself thinking more and more about Ion. She had started visiting the street near the garage often, sometimes just walking by, sometimes peeking inside to see if he was there. At first, she told herself it was just curiosity, but deep inside, she knew it was something else. She wanted to see him, to talk to him, to know what secrets he was hiding behind those silent eyes. One evening, as the sun was setting and the sky was painted in shades of red and gold, Sarah found Ion again. He was standing outside the garage, leaning against his bike. He looked lost in thought, staring at the horizon, unaware that someone was watching him. For a moment, Sarah just stood there, her heart beating fast. She wanted to capture that sight forever, him standing in the golden light, quiet and mysterious. "Do you always look this serious?" she asked softly as she walked closer. Ion turned and saw her. His expression did not change much, but his eyes showed a flicker of surprise. "You again," he said. "Yes, me again," Sarah smiled, trying to hide the nervousness in her voice. "Why do you always act like you don't want me here? If you didn't want me, you would have told me clearly the first time." Ion sighed. "Sarah, you don't understand. Being around me is not good for you." Sarah frowned. "Not good for me? You fixed my car. You saved me that night. You don't talk much, but you're not a bad person. How can being around you be bad for me?" Ion looked away, his jaw tight. "Because people close to me get hurt. That's how life has been for me." His words hit her heart like a sharp blade. She could feel the pain hidden in his voice. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. But then she stepped closer and said softly, "Maybe life is just waiting for someone to stay. Maybe it's waiting for you to let someone in." Ion looked at her, his eyes full of emotions he was trying hard to hide. He wanted to push her away again, but her words reached a part of him that had been silent for years. Before either of them could speak more, loud voices echoed from the other side of the street. A group of rough-looking men appeared, laughing and shouting. They walked toward the garage, and Sarah could sense the tension in the air. Ion's body stiffened, and his eyes turned cold. The men stopped near the garage. One of them smirked and said, "So, Ion, still hiding here? Thought you could escape us forever." Sarah's heart pounded. She looked at Ion, confused. Who were these people? What did they want from him? Ion stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "This is not the place. Leave." The man laughed. "Still the same Ion. Always trying to act strong. But you know you owe us. You can't run away forever." Sarah's eyes widened. She didn't understand what was happening, but she could feel the danger. The men looked cruel, and Ion was clearly involved with them somehow. Before things could get worse, Ion grabbed Sarah's hand and whispered urgently, "Go. Now." But Sarah refused to move. "Not without you," she whispered back. The men noticed her and smirked. "Who's this? A friend? Or something more?" Their laughter filled the street, and Sarah felt shivers run through her body. Ion stepped in front of her protectively. "She has nothing to do with this. Stay away from her." The leader narrowed his eyes. "Oh, now you protect people? That's new." A tense silence followed. Finally, the men stepped back. "We'll come back, Ion. And next time, you won't be able to hide." With that, they walked away, their laughter fading into the distance. Sarah's hands were trembling. She looked at Ion, her eyes full of questions. Who were they? What do they want from you? Ion did not answer at first. He ran his hand through his hair and sighed deeply. "This is what I meant when I said being close to me is dangerous. Those men, they are from my past. A past I'm trying to escape." Sarah's heart sank. She wanted to ask more, but she could see the pain in his eyes. Instead of pushing him, she softly said, "Everyone has a past. Maybe what matters is what you choose now." Ion looked at her, his chest heavy with emotions. You don't understand, Sarah. My past can destroy everything I care about. That's why I stay alone. That's why I don't let anyone in. Sarah stepped closer and placed her hand gently on his arm. Then maybe it's time you stop running. Maybe you don't have to fight alone anymore. For the first time, Ion did not push her hand away. He looked at her, and his walls slowly started to crack. He did not say it, but inside, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. That night, as Sarah walked back home, her heart was heavy yet determined. She now knew Ion's silence was not just mystery, it was pain, regret, and a past full of shadows. But she also knew something else. She was not ready to leave him. She wanted to be the light that reached him, no matter how dark his world was. And for Ion, as he stood alone in the garage after she left, he whispered to himself, "Why do you keep coming back, Sarah?" But deep down, he already knew the answer, because he wanted her to. The night after the confrontation with those men, Sarah could not sleep. She kept remembering the fear in Ion's eyes, the way he pulled her behind him, the warning in his voice. For the first time, she realized how dangerous his past might be. Yet, instead of fear pushing her away, it pulled her closer. She wanted to be the one who stayed, no matter what shadows followed him. The next morning, she went to the garage again. Ion was there, sitting silently with his head down, a cigarette burning in his hand though he wasn't really smoking it. His eyes looked tired, like he had not rested all night. Sarah walked in quietly. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Ion looked up, surprised to see her again. He shook his head. "Sarah, why are you here? I told you yesterday, being near me is dangerous. Those men, they won't stop until they destroy everything." Sarah sat down on a wooden stool across from him. "Then let them try. You don't have to face them alone anymore." Ion's voice grew sharp. "You don't understand. They're not just troublemakers. They're criminals. I was once part of them. Years ago, I made mistakes. I thought I could escape, but the past never lets go. If they know you're with me, they'll use you to hurt me." Sarah's heart trembled hearing his confession. But instead of stepping back, she leaned forward and took his hand. "Ion, everyone makes mistakes. You're not with them anymore. You chose to walk away. That means something. Don't let fear decide your future." Ion stared at her, his heart heavy. Nobody had ever said such words to him before. Nobody had looked at him and seen more than his mistakes. For the first time in years, he felt like maybe he deserved a second chance. Suddenly, the sound of bikes roared outside. Sarah and Ion both turned quickly. The same men from yesterday stormed into the garage. Their leader smirked. "Didn't I tell you we'd be back? And look, you even brought us someone new." His eyes shifted to Sarah, and Ion immediately stepped in front of her. "Leave her out of this," Ion said firmly. The leader laughed. "Why so protective, Ion? She must mean something to you." Ion clenched his fists. "She means nothing to you. This is between me and you." The men surrounded them, tension filling the air. Sarah's heart pounded, but she stood her ground behind Ion. She wanted to run, but something inside her told her to stay. She couldn't leave him now, not when he needed her the most. The leader stepped closer. "You owe us, Ion. And until you pay, you'll never be free." Ion's eyes burned with anger. "I don't owe you anything. My life with you ended years ago. I won't go back." The men laughed, but suddenly, the sound of police sirens echoed down the street. Someone had called them, maybe a neighbor, maybe luck, but it was enough. The men panicked. "This isn't over," the leader hissed before rushing out with the others. Their bikes roared into the distance, leaving the garage filled with heavy silence. Ion stood frozen, breathing hard. Sarah touched his arm gently. "It's over, Ion. They're gone." But Ion shook his head. "No, Sarah. They'll come back. They always do. That's why I can't let you stay near me. I can't let them hurt you because of me." Tears filled Sarah's eyes, but she held his hand tightly. "You don't get to decide that alone. I chose to stay. I'm not afraid of your past. I only care about who you are now. Ion looked at her, truly looked at her, and for the first time, he let his guard fall completely. His eyes softened, and he whispered, "Why do you care so much?" Sarah smiled through her tears. "Because somewhere between fear and mystery, I found something real. I found you." For a long moment, silence filled the garage. Then, slowly, Ion pulled her closer. He had pushed people away his whole life, but this time, he couldn't. He didn't want to. He finally allowed himself to hold on to someone who refused to let go. The weight of his past was still there, but in Sarah's arms, it didn't feel impossible anymore. For the first time, he believed he could build a future, not alone, but with her. Outside, the streets returned to their usual noise, life moving as if nothing had happened. But inside the small garage, something had changed forever. Two broken souls had found each other on a lonely road, and what began as a rescue had now turned into something much deeper, love, fragile but powerful, born out of fear, courage, and trust. And as the night fell again, Ion whispered softly, almost to himself, "Maybe I don't have to run anymore." Sarah squeezed his hand and smiled. "No, you don't. Not as long as I'm here." Their journey was not going to be easy. The shadows of Ion's past would try to return. But now, he was no longer fighting alone. And for Sarah, it was no longer just about curiosity. It was about love, a love strong enough to heal, protect, and fight against anything that came their way.